Can you guys all see this right side? Okay. Do I need to zoom in or anything? I can if I need to. All right, well, I guess we'll go ahead and get started. My name's Chris Wright. I work for Code Koalas in Kansas City. I've been working with Drupal maybe about 4 or 5 years now. And I thought I'd talk about views because some people might not know how to use it. It's a great tool. And if you want to follow along, I have the URL for my slides there. Let's get started. So what is views? Do you have a question? Yes. Yeah, it's not the easiest URL to type out. All right, everyone good? Alrighty. So views is a Drupal module that's great for content management. A lot of people, they have websites to display events, display news articles, and you need a list of those on your page. And views does that pretty well. It lets you render your content in ways that are easy to theme and style for the end user. One thing that's nice is views is actually in core. It just comes built in with Drupal 8. You had to download it in Drupal 7, so that's a great improvement. It lets you list, categorize, sort, and count contents by type. You can create different types of views. There are block views, page views, feeds, attachments, and in Drupal 8 you can create a REST exports for your API if you choose to do that. That also comes in Drupal core. And I don't know if anyone knows MySQL. Probably some people in here. It's basically, a view is just an SQL query. It's a DB select. It just grabs whatever nodes you tell it to, whatever pieces of content, and displays it to you. So I'll get more into that here in a second. So views is nice. So you can do lots of things with views, as I was saying. One of the key things that you can create in Drupal is a block. It's just a piece of data or content that goes on your page. You can put it on a page, a whole page, in a region, a small section. And so one of the great things I think of views is you can create a block view. There's lots of flexibility. It does not create a page. I don't know why that typo is there. It creates a block, not a page. And it can be placed on any page. It can be used in paragraphs. I know there were some talks about paragraphs earlier today. Really the great thing about blocks is the block view is you can put it maybe in the sidebar if you need to. It doesn't have to fill up the whole entire page. And then you have a page view, which creates a whole page for your view. It's not as easy to change the layout. Say if you want to add different pieces of content like a sidebar, a header, a footer, because the page is your view. You can get around it with some templates and different things. I prefer to use blocks because you can just put it in whatever region you need. If you want to add your view to another page, you'll need to create a block because this is a page. It stays on that page. And page views require a set path, so you just declare what the URL for this page is going to be, and that's the page that the view resides on. There's a few more. You have a feed view, which creates an RSS feed of your content. It also creates a set path so that people can go to it, retrieve the feeds from. There are attachment views, and this is basically just a smaller view that you can attach to another view. A friend of mine was telling me a great thing you can do with this is in views you can aggregate data, or you could say have a count of say how many blogs are there. And if you put this as an attachment to the header of your other view, if you change a filter or change that view, that'll update as you change it as an attachment. Then there are also there are embed views and entity reference views. views components. There's a lot of things you can do here. You might be able to see some of that. We'll get started with title. Then you have, so you just declare your title. Format, there are several different formats. You have grid, HTML list, table, and unformatted list. So by default, it starts as an unformatted list, so it just prints your content. It doesn't wrap it in any crazy HTML, any tables. It doesn't wrap it in a grid. So how that renders, right here I've created a movie content type, and so this will just print a list of movies that we've made, and those are all just down here. It's not formatted. You can do whatever you want with it. You can style it exactly how you want it. So unformatted lists are great because they're very versatile and you can change them however you want. The grid is you just have several columns. There's lots of settings you can do here. You can say how many columns you want, if you want it horizontal or vertical. We'll just leave that how it is. And you can see how it set it in 4 different columns here on the page. So already you could style that pretty nicely. So the grid and unformatted lists are my favorite, just because they're so simple. An HTML list, you can sort it as an unordered list, so a bullet list, or an ordered list, which is just numbers. And so it'll render like that. And lastly, you have table, which tables are just fantastic. I don't know about you, but I don't like tables. So it was printed out in a table, and you could have columns, but it just throws all that styles in there. You don't want all of that. So my recommendation is to stick with either unformatted list. It will take a little more styling rather than the columns. You can put your own classes on it. So you can make if you use a framework like Zurb Foundation or Bootstrap, you can use their column system and add those classes to an unformatted list. Or you can use the grid. That's pretty nice too. I believe you can just add your classes here. So you could use someone else's classes if you were using Bootstrap or another framework that already has columns built in. So let's just change that back to unformatted list. So one thing I want to talk about is grouping. It's really nice. Let's see. So I've created several categories for these movies. We have action, adventure, comedy, and thriller. So I'm just going to list the categories, which is a field on the movie content type. Going to go ahead and just hide that so we don't see it, but we can still group them by the categories. So what I'm about to do is it'll show each of the categories and show which movies go under each of those just by grouping them. That's under unformatted list settings. You're going to group that by category. And here you have your comedies. And this is just Lorem Ipsum. I didn't take the time to add movies in. So there's your adventure movies, all the ones tagged with adventure, all the movies tagged with thriller and action. So if you wanted to just group them and have different categories on the page, it's very simple to do that using views. So let's just take that back. Not group that for now. And then you can add row classes, so that'll wrap around each row, so each piece of content. So you could add just a generic class, maybe like row class. It already comes with views row on each of them. If you want to get rid of that, you can just deselect it right there. It's kind of great that you don't have to use the classes if you don't want to. So next, we have here the different formats that you can use. You can use fields, in content how you want to render it through the view. So with fields by default, you have your content type, which is a movie, and I have fields of title, description, movie category, and cover photo. And so if you wanted to add those to be displayed down here, you just add them here, the different fields. And then each one will be displayed here. And with body text, you can trim. I believe it's under rewrite results. You can trim the field so it's only, say, 150 characters. So then they're a lot shorter. Because some people don't like to read a whole book when they're on a page. Let's see. So yeah, you have fields. That's how the fields would be rendered. So if you wanted to change it to content, what this does is kind of similar to Display Suite. So when you create a content type, up here. So I've created this content type, the movie. Here are my fields: cover photo, description, movie category, and title is a default field, so I don't need to define that. But you can go over to Manage Display, and this is how it will render out the content. So instead of managing the display on the actual view, saying show the title, the description, you can come here and say, I only want the description, or you don't want the description, you want cover photo. And this is the default view mode, and there's a teaser view mode. So the default would be if you click on the movie and go to the actual page, that'll be your default view. And in the view with the list of movies, that will be the teaser. And so you can do both of these. And this can be smaller, just show like the title and the image rather than everything. Because on the default view mode, you would probably want the whole thing. And so that brings us back to the view. And you can say, now that we've clicked content, you can say teaser or default. And that'll just render what you've defined on the view mode instead of using the fields in the view. Does that make sense? Okay. Let's go back to fields. Alrighty. So I've talked about the fields. Next, you have filter criteria. And by default, when you create a view, it asks you if you're using content, which content type you would like to use. And it automatically adds two filters: publishing status, so if the piece of content is published, and then it'll show, and it has the content type of movie. So if you wanted this view to show blogs, you would say content type blog instead of movie. But if you want to, you can add different filters if you only want to show them that start with the letter A, or movies that only occurred in a certain date. You can add those filters to display basically anything that you want. Then you have exposed filters, which are great. Exposed filters are basically when a user goes to the page, there will be a select list or links, and they can change how they filter the content. So we could do one with the movie categories. So you change it based on, oh, I want to see all the action movies, and it'll only show me action movies. So over here you have exposed form. So there are different types of filters that you can set up. There's basic and input required, or if you download the Better Exposed Filters module, which you should, you have this option. It's way better. It gives you more options. You can actually, I think by default you can only use a select list, and you can't override many things. With Better Exposed Filters, you can actually create links on the page, which a lot of designers call for that. They don't like select lists, apparently. So Better Exposed Filters is great. Let's see. I think I got ahead of myself, but so yeah, I'll just go ahead to that. Skip to expose filters. So the better expose filter requires the better expose filters module. And in Drupal 8, if you want to create your view as a block, you also need the views exposed filter block module. That's this guy right here. Because the reason for that, if you create a view page and you create a filter, it just goes at the top of the page and it changes everything. But if you create a block, there is no top of the page to put it. So you would need a separate block for your filters, and you can put that wherever. So you need that module, the views exposed filter block, to do this. I was banging my head against the wall all week trying to figure out why the block didn't work. And that module does the trick. So yeah, we'll go in here to the exposed filter settings. You have some settings. I always just turn off, set it to auto submit, so you don't have to click submit after you've changed your filter. You can hide the submit button, which I don't know why you would have a submit button if it auto submits. It just doesn't make sense to me. Then you have your exposed filter settings. So if you want to create an exposed filter, first off, under the filter criteria, you create a filter. I've created movie category. I've exposed it to the end user to change themselves. And the movie category references that field that I've created. Sorry, I am getting ahead of myself. So I've created a taxonomy, which is a list of categories, as I told you. And so there's a field on the content type that references those taxonomies, movie category. So when you create a piece of content, when you create a movie, it'll say which category is it. And now that we have that, this I create a filter on the field that references the taxonomy. So I have a movie category filter, and we have all these options, and we want all of those, so we're not going to select just one. And yeah. Okay. So now you come here, and the field that you've exposed as a filter is now available to choose what kind of filter you want to use. There's default, which is the select list. You can opt for checkboxes or radio buttons, or what's most popular is links. Just on the page, you can style the buttons. A lot of people use those, and so it'll just show the links at the top of the page or the block, and you click on it and it'll change what it shows. So let me save that. Come over here. So here's my view. It's not very pretty, I know. So you have your filter right here, your links, and these are your movies. So first off, I'll click on action movies. These are all the action movies. I know it would make more sense if I had pictures of Die Hard up there, but I don't. Then you have, so it changes based on the taxonomy that these are listed as. So better exposed filters is great. Let's see. If you wanted to just do a select list, there is an option. By default, or I think it does it as links too. So by default, there is an option, the all option, like show all of the movies. It's dash space any space dash, which usually that's not exactly what you want. So you can come in here and rewrite what that shows. You have to type in what the filter or what the name is, pipeline, and to whatever you want it to be. So all movies. And it'll now say all movies instead of any, which most designs don't call for dash any dash. So all right. So getting back to where I was. Criteria. So now you have sort criteria. By default, it's listed as authored on, so the day that it was authored, descending, so it'll show the newest piece of content first. It'll show, so if you post a movie yesterday and a movie today, it'll show that one first and then yesterday. You can add different sort criteria. You can do it alphabetically, by title, etc. And so that's pretty self-explanatory, just however you want to sort your blogs, articles, events, movies. Up here for the block view, there are block settings. You can add a block name, so when you're on the block configuration page, this is the name that'll show up. So, movie block number 1. Block category, that's just it's listed as lists, views, and that'll show up in the list of blocks under that category. Allow settings, so this passes this setting to the block configuration page. Items per page, you say 10, 20, or since we already define it in here, I'm just going to disable that. And lastly for the block is who can see this. By default, it's set to permission, so whoever has the permission of view published content can see this. So you could change that to whoever can create content can see this one certain block. Or you can change this to role and only show it to administrators, only show it to anonymous users. And what's next? So next you have your header and footer region. Those are great if you just want to display text maybe above it, just a lead in. This is the list of movies, description, and a footer. That can be, you can pass a lot of things in this. It doesn't just have to be text. It can be the featured movie at the bottom or top, and then show the rest of the list of them. So really whatever you want to go into the header and footer. And then you have the pager, which that just, you have several different choices. You can show all of the items, you can show a list of them, you can have a pager at the bottom that has next and back buttons, or you can have a full pager that has all of the numbers, like go to page 5. And so that's pretty handy. Then, so after the pager, you have the Advanced tab, and you have, first off, have contextual filters. So like the filter criteria filters, these just get the value passed through the URL. So, so if you were on the URL /blogs/food, it would only show the blogs about food. Or one that's really handy, you can set it up to show a user's own posts on their user page. And so that just grabs the user ID out of the URL and filters it based on the user ID. So that's pretty handy to use as well. I've used that several times. Then relationships. This is necessary sometimes. So if you had a blog, that'll show you all the blog content, but if you wanted to get information about the user who posted it, that's in a completely different section of the website or the database. So you have to use a relationship to relate those two pieces of data together. So you would just go into relationship and you would say grab the user and link them in, and it will give you all the fields based on the user that posted it as well. And you can use that for custom entities that you've built, comments left on the blog, taxonomy terms that you can't access, and so that's relationships. Then no results behavior. Not sure. Oh, it's over here. So no results behavior. That's just if there are no movies, what do you want to happen with your view? Because it's just going to be empty. So you can set a message to say there is no content available, no movies, no blogs have been posted, come back later, that type of thing. There's the expose filter. So the other, that's all these things down here. I said in my description for this talk that I would talk about the differences between Drupal 7 views and Drupal 8 views, but then I started looking at it, and they're pretty much the same, except for there are a few different things in this other tab that doesn't seem very too much to talk about. So I'll just talk about what we have here. You have the machine name of your block. You can define that here. You can just change it to movies #1. Then you can leave comments in here, comments on your view for whatever reason if you needed to leave that. Maybe you built the view completely wrong and you just wanted to leave a comment saying, hey, I'm sorry. You could do that. You can, which we actually, at our company, we have a shame.scss file. So if you have to do something so shameful, it goes in that file. So then next you have use Ajax. You would really only need this for exposed filters so the page doesn't have to reload. It'll just run the Ajax call and change the content on the view. So you can just change that yes or no. It's a Boolean value. You can hide attachments in the summary. So if you're displaying the summary of the view, or you're looking at a rendering of all the views that shows the summary, you can hide the attachments. Contextual links, you can hide those, you can show those. Use aggregation. So aggregation basically is a way to group different things together. So you could group all the blogs together and grab a value, maybe a count, how many blogs there are. You can do the minimum number of, or the maximum value any of them have. So on a project I did, we had a value, I think it was like a rating. And so you could group them all together and say what was the highest rating. And then you could use that through aggregation. You have query settings, caching. Caching is good if you have a huge view that's rendering tons of content and it's bogging your site down. You can change that. There's tag-based and time-based. And tag-based. So I was looking at this. Basically, there are tags about what type of content it is. There's entity type, then entity ID. So node 5, that's the cache tag for the entity, the node, the 5th entity. User 3, this is really just a different way to cache it. And then there's time-based, so like every hour flush the cache, something like that. And then, let's see. And you can add a CSS class to your view. So that would be the wrapper around the view. I believe that goes underneath the title for the view and just around the actual content of the view. So you could say movie block 1, because for some reason Drupal wouldn't already do that, because it adds classes too many times. Then you can hide the block if the view output is empty. So that's also, if nothing shows up, you can hide your view, which at that point you just have a blank page. So, let's see, caching. All right, and that's views basically for you. I'm going to, if you guys want, I can answer questions, or I could build a view and just kind of show you how to do it from scratch. You guys, is that cool with you guys? Just build a view. Question?
Can you show how to do the exposed filters in a separate block?
Yes. Let's get rid of this. Alrighty. So, like I said, I have my content type of movie, which has these fields, has the entity reference to the taxonomy of movie categories. Here are my taxonomy. And I already have the better exposed. Both of those modules are already enabled that I told you about. Let's just get rid of that. Here we go. That's nice and big now. Let's see. All right, so I'm going to create a block view. I'm going to display the title and movie category. Actually, yeah, I'll start this from scratch because it already has it done correctly. Okay. So I'm creating a movies to view, content type of movie, and instead of creating a page, I'll create a block here. You can change the block title, and then the display format, that's what I was showing earlier, grid, HTML list, and I usually just use fields. It's the easiest for me. Then save and edit. All right, so currently we just show 5 movies. Now to have access to the movie category to use the filter on, you have to have that actually in your fields listed. And you can exclude it from display if you don't want it to show up. You don't have to show it. So we still have these movies here. Alright. So over here it's still set to basic, so I'll leave that there for now. We create a new filter of movie category right here. And the other option you could do is has taxonomy term. And that would be if you need depth. So if you have different levels of taxonomy. So you could have movie, genre, time, year that it came out, and then go down. And so has taxonomy term allows you to filter based on the depth of your taxonomy. But for this demonstration, we'll just do movie category. Then here you select which taxonomy it's going to be, so movie categories. And for this, for whatever reason, it has to be a drop-down instead of autocomplete. I think that's just because it has to render them out on the page, and if it's autocomplete, it is just a search box. So apply and continue. And so right here we have just basic filter. We want to expose this so people can use it. You have different options here. You can do single filter, group filters. Here's your label, so that will just be what it prints above the filter on the page, which usually you hide the CSS, so get rid of that. And if you want to only have action and adventure, you could select those, or if you want to just show all of them, just unselect that, and they're all there to use. So now you have a normal expose filter with an apply button. So this changes what you see here. Now, to get the better expose filter, you switch this over here. And I'm going to get rid of the submit button, and we'll just leave it as a select box. So let's see, that's not, I'll leave the submit button. Alright. Why am I looking here? I have a computer right here. Alright, so the module, the views block expose filter module, I think I said that right. It gives you this little option here, expose form in block, and so that'll give you the option to use it as a block. And so you obviously want to say yes there. And so it removes it from the view because it's no longer a part of this view, it's a different block. So I believe that's all we need to do here. Alright, so I'm going to create a basic page. So hopefully this works right. It wasn't working earlier today, but fingers crossed. Create a basic page of my favorite movies. Texas movies. So I'll just set the URL here. And you need to start that with a URL or a slash. Cool, so I have the page. Now I want to place that block on this page. So first off, I'll just go into the content section and let's see, what's the name of that block? So movies 2. Save that. Okay, come back here. Okay, so then you would place the block for the view. This isn't the filter yet, but we'll get to that. So you can display the title, remove it, show how many movies you want to display. I'll just leave it at 5. And then this block will go on Texas Movies page. And save that. And we need to go to that page. Okay, so there's the view. Now we want to add the filter to it as well. So we'll go back here to the content region, or like I said, you can always add the filter to a different region, like a sidebar or something if you need to. Okay, so the filter will say exposed form movies to block 1. So that's just the machine name of the view and then block 1, block 2, block 3. So we'll place that and we'll add that to the Texas Movies page. And then you can define the machine name here too. Texas Movies, save. Alright, so let's go back here. And there you go, the select list above. And there it changes what movies show up. And
Going down to the far right, you just put it in a different region.
yeah. And then you could, I think I've worked on a project where the sidebar, it would have a list of, or it was this side, is a list of article names, and it would change the content on the right side. So yeah, better exposed filters. I've wrote a blog on it too. It's is we actually tried to do what the module does once before we knew about the module. I think we were using JavaScript to grab the values out of the select list to create links on the page. So using this module is way easier than doing that. So yeah, I'll show you just changing this text right here, the NA text. I'll do that real quick. So again, that's in the expose filter settings. In the more options, you can rewrite the filter options. So this is this isn't just for the any text. You can change any of the values in your filter. But you have to spell it exactly how it shows up. So it's dash space any dash in that pipe, and I'll just say show all movies. And what do you know? It didn't work, right? But that is how you do it. It could be like if you don't spell it exactly right or have the spaces off, sometimes it doesn't work. Because they don't want to override like similar text, so you have to spell it exactly right. So any other questions? Anything you want me to do?
Yeah, there's that option to use Ajax.
Mm-hmm.
So why wouldn't you want to use Ajax if you get to bypass having the whole page refresh?
I don't know.
What are you missing?
Well, so with something like this, I would use Ajax so that like you don't have to have the page reload. I'm guessing by default it's set to not use Ajax, so maybe just people don't know it's there. I don't know. I don't know exactly why you wouldn't want to use it. Maybe if your Ajax or your JavaScript is broken, then it wouldn't work. But,
I've had some problems using Ajax when I had other things using Ajax on the same page.
From Drupal?
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, Ajax. It's not like the dish cleaner. Not
I mean, the URL doesn't change with Ajax either, so if you're giving that URL to something, you might want to not have Ajax.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or else it'll change the URL at the top to / whatever. I think she had a question, then I'll get you.
Can you build a view based on, say, a select statement to an external database?
I mean, I'm sure you could. That might be tricky, but I'd have to look that up. If I was doing that, I would probably just write it myself rather than do a view. But one thing that is nice with views, if you go to the views settings, you can actually you can show the SQL query that the view actually is using to generate the content. And then it'll show you the select that it's doing to grab that content. So then maybe you could create a view, grab that select, and then use it on your other database. And you had a question?
Can you show an example of using a contextual filter?
We can figure it out together. How about that? So, let's see. I haven't used these very much, but there are tons of tutorials on these. What you want to do, there are different options here. When the filter value is not available in the URL, you can display different things, no results found, access denied. You can hide the view, set exceptions, and then when the filter is available, you can do different actions down here. So it's a little trickier to set up, but once it's set up, it works really well. I would show you more, but that's about all I know on contextual filters. There is, so I mentioned the REST export in views. I don't know, some people don't know a lot about that thing. In Drupal 7, there was the services module, which allowed you to expose, basically create a view, and then instead of rendering HTML, it would render JSON or XML data, which you could then grab by like React Native front end, and then use the code to style. Rather than printing this out as HTML, you could use a headless Drupal or a React front end. You can do that in Drupal 8. It comes with the Restful API module by default, and that allows you to create a REST export through your view. And that's basically, it's exactly the same, except pretty much exactly the same, but instead of rendering HTML, it'll give you JSON or XML data. So if you want to create some sort of web app, you could use it for that. And yeah, so views are pretty useful for a lot of things. I use views pretty much every day. It was one of the first things I learned in Drupal because it's pretty simple to learn. You don't really have to know back-end coding. You just say, oh, I want this content type. Show me 5 of them instead of 20. And then it just prints it out however you want. I didn't show you, yes?
I had a question on views. Can you update the URL? What are the steps for that?
Well,
can you see if you have a a correct URL?
Well, you can create a page view,
Okay.
and then you can set the URL for that page.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So here, if you didn't see that, I just created there on this ad. You can create any of these types of views. There are different modules that give you more options, like the Restful API. You could create a REST export here. So yeah, you click page, and then you have these options for page settings, and then you could just say whatever you want your URL to be. You can say movies list. And then if you go to that page, then that will be there
It'll be
on
there.
that page. Yeah.
All right.
And you can also create a menu link for that page right here in the view. And there is also, if you use, if you use a % right here, that's similar to a contextual filter. So if you go to movie list / action, then I'll only show you the action movies then. So I'll just show that now. Do I have this set up already? Get rid of this filter. Yeah. So that's, let's see. So yeah, the % represents values that will be used. So it's just a variable basically. So whatever value, it'll take you to those things. And it says here you can also do like, you could do node / whatever value you pass it / feed, and then take you to the feed of any of those taxonomies if you have a feed set up. So let's go to Texas Cam / movie list / action. And is that the right URL? Let's see. So many tabs open now. Movie list. Adventure. Well, it's not working right. But that's essentially how that would work. Any other questions? Yep.
Is there a way to, with exposed filters, for them to be conditional on whether or not they have any results?
I think there might be an option in there. Let's see. Category drop down. Expose filter. So you can reduce duplicates. It doesn't look like there's anything here. You can do is not empty. So I don't think that's exactly what you want. Because that's basically just this.
Yeah.
But there might be some sort of option. I'm sure
Yeah.
it's somewhere out there. So what would be the
Well, like
advantage
an
of having
example
that?
is, well, say you have a second filter in there,
Mhm.
like for rating, right? And say you pick a horror movie category and then 5 stars, but say there's no 5-star horror
Mhm.
movies, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think it would just not display anything at that point.
Right, but
But you want it to say like,
to
oh,
just
they're
not
not.
show the option at all, right? So that you don't get
Yeah.
0 results.
Right. Yeah, because you have the no results behavior for the view, but not for the filter.
Not at a filter level.
That's I don't know why they don't have something like that. I'll look into that.
So you're talking about having two different filters? And if there's
Sure.
no results from the first filter, you don't show the second filter?
No, more like Or you could even say with a single filter, if any option
Like if
doesn't
it's
have
blank.
results, just don't display that option.
Yeah.
Isn't that the no results behavior?
Well, that's for maybe that might work.
Yeah.
Well, it would probably work for one filter. I'm not sure about two, but it might be no results behavior. That could do it. Let's just say messages.
Like I know you can do that kind of stuff in Solar, but
Oh, really?
I didn't know, if there was any way to just use.
Here we go. All right, we're gonna say we're sorry. So if there's no options, it'll show a text box that says we're sorry. I'll create a new taxonomy that doesn't have anything. Get rid of all these tabs. I mean, I'm sure you could do something with some sort of views hook. Maybe, like I do like the idea of hiding the filter if there's nothing available, but let's see, romance. We don't have any romance movies on our site. Okay, so we have the no results behavior. We have, oh, and it did change. Now the filter says show all movies.
Yeah, it does.
So we have action, we have adventure, but romance. We're sorry. Okay, so that does work for that.
Well, the use case is to not have romance to display in the
Before
list
they
at
even
all.
search.
Right,
Yeah.
before they even try to
Basically,
search.
there's no results.
Yeah, that might take a little more logic. Maybe some JavaScript or something. Right.
Yeah. Like I said, like the Solar, yeah.
Really?
It's a searchy thing, so I
Mhm.
wasn't sure if Hughes was really going in that direction.
I don't know. Yeah, I'll have to look into that. So let's see.
Have you ever used the glossary view that comes out of the box with views?
I don't think so. So you say it comes out of the box?
Yeah.
Let me look up here. What does that do? Or is that just,
No, it's in views. It's if you go to a list of your views.
oh. Okay. Oh, the glossary view. I see. So this?
Yeah.
All content by letter. So is that'll just be / glossary. Well, that's cool. Well, if you want a glossary of your content, you enable the glossary view.
That's what he needs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably need some theming, but that's pretty cool.
And those are sortable columns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And a lot of things like the content, if you go to the content page, this is just a view pretty much. I think it's set up in here. If not, yeah, content. So admin content. So that's just a view. So if you want a basic, just a view to see what you can do with views, go to the content page. You can have, these are all filters here. Title, you can do a search, content type, publish status, and then hit filter. And these are just actions you can do: delete, save. And these are operations links. You can add those in your view if you want. That's an option. And here's your pager. So that makes me, now I want to look at all the other views that come default. After seeing archive, that's another one. It's probably just unpublished content, I would think.
Now, that's if you can store, well, if you have blog posts, you can store like by months.
Oh, really?
You can archive them by months.
Okay. Oh, I see. Oh, so yeah. Is this aggregated? No, it's not. It's just grouped. Nice. That's pretty neat. And so there's a contextual filter that it came with. It's filtered content created year plus month. Let's look at that. When the filter value is not available, it displays a summary. It sorts ascending by date in a list, and then displays a record count with a link. So if you come down here, you can see you have May 2017 and June 2017. So that's created by the contextual filters right there. And then when the filter value is available, they've set this up to show the created year month, and they've just used replacement patterns down here to put that in there. Let's see if there's anything else. Now, has anyone used an embed view or an entity reference view? Anybody?
Embedded views.
Yeah.
In like the WYSIWYG,
Mhm.
yeah, or just in a template.
Yeah, I was trying to look up when you would use that, and all it would tell me was like views embed like a function. But I'm kind of wondering if that's where you would set this up to be embedded on something.
I'm not sure. I've never used that there.
Mhm. Yeah.
Embed there.
But let's see. Yeah. It's some sort of embed. Then your entity reference view, that just pretty sure that just references entities through the view. Let's see. And another thing you can do with views is you can actually, in the header and footer, you can place another view inside the view. So if you wanted to place a small view above your view, you could add it to the header, and then you just select which view to add.
I think the embed, the last two display types that you looked at might be 8. I don't think
Mhm.
7 had them.
Yeah, it wasn't. They had other things on 7. On 7 they had a jump menu, maybe an entity reference, but I don't think there was an embed. Well, if there's no more questions, you guys can enjoy the last 20 minutes till the last session. Is it the last session?
So.
Cool.